Crixthal woke up to darkness and cold. The small pod around them hummed with dying power. Their forearms reached out, touching the metal walls. Everything was wrong. The last thing they remembered was drinking the evening nutrient solution with the other engineers. The taste had been strange, bitter. Then nothing. Now they were here, alone in this tiny space, floating in the endless black. Their 6 eyes adjusted to the dim emergency lights. A small screen blinked on the wall. Crixthal's chest tightened as they read the words. Life support, 14 hours remaining. Distress beacon, disabled. Location, unknown. The memories came back slowly, like poison spreading through their mind. The colony ship had been traveling for 6 months. 3,000 Zentarii, all heading to a new world. Then the food crisis happened. The storage units failed. There was not enough for everyone. Crixthal remembered the announcement. The Hive Council had gathered all the lower castes into the main hall. The high speakers stood on the platform, their shells gleaming under the lights. The collective must survive, the first speaker had said. Her voice was calm, emotionless. Efficiency demands sacrifice. We have calculated the optimal crew size. Those who serve the lesser functions will be honored for their contribution. Crixthal had felt nothing then. They had been raised to accept the Council's wisdom. The hive was everything. The individual was nothing. If the collective needed them to die, then they would die. It was logical. It was right. But now, floating in the dark, something felt different. They checked the pod systems. Everything was minimal. The beacon was not broken. It had been turned off on purpose. The oxygen was calculated to last just long enough for them to drift far from the ship. No one would find them. No one was meant to find them. Crixthal clicked their mandibles together, a nervous habit. They pulled up the pod's memory files. There were 43 other pods, 43 other Zentarii, all deemed expendable, all drifting in different directions through the nebula. The engineers, the cleaners, the maintenance workers, all the ones the Council decided the colony ship did not need. Crixthal had repaired the ship's engines 17 times during the journey. They had stopped 3 critical failures. They had kept everyone alive. And this was their reward. For the first time in their life, Crixthal felt something they had no word for. It burned in their chest, hot and painful. Among humans, it would be called anger. Among the Zentarii, it was simply incorrect thinking. The pod was cold. Crixthal wrapped their thin arms around their body. Their species did not handle low temperatures well. Already their movements were becoming slow. Their thoughts were getting fuzzy. 14 hours. Then it would be over. They looked out the small window. The nebula stretched in every direction, purple and blue gases swirling in the darkness. Stars blinked like distant eyes. It was beautiful. Crixthal had never thought about beauty before. Beauty was inefficient. Beauty did not serve the hive. But here, at the end, they could admit it. The universe was beautiful. Crixthal's training told them to accept death with calm, to meditate on the glory of the collective, to be grateful for the opportunity to serve. That was the Zentarii way. But that burning feeling in their chest would not go away. They thought about the Council, safe on the colony ship, eating the food that 43 deaths had bought them. Would they think of the ones they left behind? Would they remember their names? Or would they simply note the increased efficiency in their logs? Crixthal knew the answer. The pod had a recording system. It was meant for final reports, for data that might help the hive. Crixthal turned it on. Their fingers moved over the controls. They began to speak in their own language, a series of clicks and whistles that few other species understood. It was a death poem, traditional among their people. But Crixthal changed the words. I am Crixthal, engineer of the 3rd tier. I repaired engines. I fixed life support. I saved lives. The hive deemed me inefficient. The hive left me to die. I served with every moment of my existence, but service was not enough. Their voice broke. The clicking became irregular. I do not die for the glory of the collective. I die because the collective chose efficiency over life. I die alone because my people valued numbers over names. If anyone finds this recording, know this. I did not want to die. I wanted to live. I wanted to matter. Crixthal stopped the recording. Their hands were shaking. Speaking those words felt like breaking something inside themselves. Every lesson, every belief, every certainty they had ever known. But the words were true, and truth mattered, even at the end. The oxygen counter blinked. 13 hours and 42 minutes. Crixthal curled up in the pod's small sleeping space. The cold was getting worse. Their body was starting to shut down, preparing for the long sleep. They closed their eyes, all 6 of them, one by one. The universe was very quiet. The pod drifted through the nebula, one small piece of metal among billions of stars. Inside, Crixthal waited for the end. They did not know that 2 million kilometers away, a small ship had just entered the nebula. They did not know that its sensors were sweeping through space looking for anything unusual. They did not know that a human captain was about to change everything. For now, Crixthal simply floated in the dark, believing they would die forgotten and alone. The universe had other plans. 3 hours had passed, maybe 4. Crixthal had stopped checking the oxygen counter. It made the waiting harder. The cold had settled deep into their body. Their limbs felt heavy like stone. Their thoughts moved slowly, drifting like the pod itself. This was the beginning of the end. The body shutting down, saving the last oxygen for the brain. A few more hours of consciousness, then sleep, then nothing. Crixthal did not fight it. What was the point? They stared at the nebula through the window. The purple gases looked like clouds, like the sky of their birth world. They had not thought about home in years. The hive did not encourage nostalgia. Memories of the past distracted from duties in the present. But now Crixthal remembered everything. The spawning pools where they had hatched. The learning chambers where they had studied engineering. The first time they had held a plasma torch and welded metal. The pride they had felt serving the collective. All of it for nothing. Crixthal's eyes were closing when the sound came. A crackle. A pop of static. The pod's communication system, dead for hours, suddenly came to life. Crixthal's eyes snapped open. All 6 of them. Their body tensed. Was it the colony ship? Had the council changed their minds? Then a voice spoke. It was rough, the words broken and heavily accented. But it was speaking Zentari. Hello? Is anyone alive in there? Crixthal's mandibles clicked in shock. That was not a Zentari voice. The sounds were wrong, shaped by a mouth that was not meant for their language. And who else even spoke Zentari? It was an obscure language. Most species use the common galactic tongue. Crixthal reached for the communication panel with shaking hands. They pressed the response button. I am here. Who is this? The voice on the other end sounded relieved. Oh, thank God. You're alive. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel Wandering Star. We picked up your pod's heat signature. Looks like your life support is failing. What's your situation? Human. The voice belonged to a human. Crixthal knew about humans. Everyone in the galaxy knew about humans. They were the newest species to join the Galactic Council, barely 50 years in space. Most species considered them strange. Too emotional. Too impulsive. Too willing to break the rules. The Zentari High Council called them dangerous. Not because they were strong, but because their ideas were infectious. Humans believed in individual rights, in personal choice, in saving everyone even when it was inefficient. My name is Crixthal, they said slowly. I am Zentari. My pod was ejected from a colony ship. The distress beacon is disabled. My people left me here to die. They checked the counter. 11 hours of oxygen remaining. There was a pause. Then the human spoke again and their voice was tight with anger. Your own people did this to you? Yes, it was necessary. The colony ship had a food crisis. The council calculated that 43 of us were expendable. It is the logical choice. The collective must survive. Another pause. Longer this time. That's the most messed up thing I've heard all month. Okay, listen. We're coming to get you. Just hang tight. Crixthal felt confusion crash through their foggy mind. What? No, you do not understand. I am expendable. The council has decided. There is no reason to rescue me. You should save your resources. The human made a sound that Crixthal did not recognize. Later, they would learn it was a laugh, but not a happy one. Yeah, we don't do that. We don't leave people to die in space. I don't care what your council says. You're a living being and you deserve to live, so we're coming to get you. It's not a discussion, but why? Krixtal's voice broke. I am not your species. You owe me nothing. This is inefficient, illogical. Maybe. The human captain's voice was firm. But it's the right thing to do, and that matters more than logic. Now I need you to stay calm and keep your oxygen consumption low. We'll be at your location in about 40 minutes. Can you do that? Krixtal did not know what to say. Their entire world was tilting. A stranger from a species they had never met was crossing the void to save them, for no reason, for no profit, just because it was right. What did that even mean? Yes, I can do that. Good, my name's Sarah, by the way. It's nice to meet you, Krixtal, even if the circumstances suck. I'm going to switch to ship-wide comms now, but I'll check back in a few minutes. You're not alone anymore, okay? The comm clicked off. Krixtal sat in the silence, staring at the communication panel. Their hands were still shaking, but not from the cold anymore. They had been left to die by their own people, abandoned as inefficient, deemed unworthy of resources, and now a human, a complete stranger, was risking their ship and crew to save them. It made no sense. The Zentari were taught that emotions were weaknesses, that attachments were dangerous, that only the collective mattered. Individuals were just parts in a machine, replaceable and forgettable. But this human captain spoke with such certainty, such conviction, as if Krixtal's life had value just because it existed. Not because they were useful, not because they served a purpose, just because they were alive. Krixtal looked down at their 4 hands. They had built things with these hands, fixed things, saved things, but they had never believed their own life mattered. They had been taught it did not. Were the humans right, or were they just foolish? The comm crackled again. Krixtal? Still with us? Yes, Captain Chen, I am here. Great, we've got you on sensors now. You're tumbling a bit, but we'll manage. Just keep breathing. We're coming, Captain Chen? Yeah? Krixtal hesitated. The words felt strange in their mouth. Thank you. There was warmth in the human's voice when she answered. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you're safe on my ship with hot food in your belly. Chen out. The comm went quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. Krixtal was not alone. Someone was coming. Someone cared. The oxygen counter read 10 hours and 37 minutes, but for the first time since waking up, Krixtal believed they might actually survive. They just had to hold on a little longer. The wandering star was coming. Krixtal watched through the small window as the human ship appeared from the purple mists of the nebula. It was not what they expected. Centauri vessels were sleek and perfect, built for efficiency. Every line was smooth, every surface polished. They looked like they belonged in space. The wandering star looked like it had been beaten by space. The hull was patched in a dozen places. Burn marks scarred the metal. One of the engine pods looked like it had been replaced with a completely different model. Nothing matched. Nothing was perfect, but it was the most beautiful thing Krixtal had ever seen. Okay, Krixtal. Sarah's voice came through the comm. We're starting our approach. This might get bumpy. The ship moved closer. Krixtal could see it was small, maybe 1/10 the size of the colony ship. On the side, the name was painted in white letters already fading. Below it was a symbol, a star with lines radiating out. I am going to try the magnetic grapple first, Sarah said. It should grab your pod and pull you into the cargo bay. Nice and easy. Krixtal heard the tension in her voice. This was not going to be easy. A metal arm extended from the wandering star's underside. At the end was a circular device that glowed blue. The grapple. Krixtal had worked with similar systems before. They were reliable on stable targets, but the pod was not stable. Krixtal had noticed it hours ago. They were tumbling slowly, spinning through space. The disabled beacon must have thrown off the pod's balance. The grapple reached out. The blue light touched the pod's hull. For a moment, Krixtal thought it would work. Then the pod spun and the grapple slipped off. Sarah cursed. Krixtal did not know the human words, but they understood the meaning. Trying again, Sarah said. 3 more times the grapple reached out. 3 more times it slipped away. The pod was spinning too fast, too unpredictably. The oxygen counter now read 6 hours and 12 minutes. There is too much rotation, Kriksthal said quietly. The grapple cannot get a stable lock. You should go. Save your fuel. I will accept my fate. Not happening. Sarah's voice was hard. I'm not leaving you. I just need to think. Kriksthal heard voices in the background. Human voices. Arguing. No, not arguing. Discussing. Debating. In Zentari culture, the leader decided, and everyone obeyed. But the humans seemed to be working together, everyone sharing ideas. Finally, Sarah came back on the comm. Okay, we're going to manual retrieval. I'm suiting up. What does that mean? It means I'm going out there to get you myself. Terror shot through Kriksthal's body. No, that is too dangerous, Captain Chen, you could die. Maybe, but you'll definitely die if I don't. So I'm going. My crew will keep the ship steady. I just need to get a tether on your pod and guide you in. Simple. Nothing about this is simple, Sarah laughed. Actually laughed. You're right about that. But I've done stupider things. Trust me. I'll be fine. The comm went quiet. Through the window, Kriksthal watched a section of the wandering star open. A figure emerged, small and fragile against the massive backdrop of space. The spacesuit was bulky and white. A light glowed from the helmet. Kriksthal could see the human inside, could see Sarah's face through the clear faceplate. She looked young. Too young to be risking her life for a stranger. Sarah pushed off from the ship with small jets on her suit. She flew through space carrying a thick cable with a magnetic clamp on the end. The tether. Coming up on your port side, Sarah said. Her breathing was loud in the comm. Man, you're spinning faster than I thought. Kriksthal pressed against the window, watching. The human captain moved with practiced skill, using the jets to match the pod's rotation. Once, twice. She got close, reached out, but the pod spun away. The oxygen counter read 4 hours and 7 minutes. Captain Chen, please, save yourself. I am not worth this. Don't say that. Sarah's voice was strained. Every life is worth it. Every single one. Now shut up and let me concentrate. She tried again. This time, she got closer. Her gloved hand touched the pod's hull. She slapped the magnetic clamp down hard. It stuck. Got you, Sarah shouted. Relief flooded through Kriksthal. They were going to make it. They were actually going to survive. Then they saw the small piece of rock. It was no bigger than Kriksthal's fist. Debris from the nebula, moving fast. In space, size did not matter. Speed was everything. And this rock was moving very fast. Captain Chen, look out. Sarah turned, but too late. The rock hit her suit's chest plate. It did not penetrate the main body, but the force sent her spinning. Her tether cable went taut. Worse, Kriksthal heard a hissing sound over the comm. Air escaping. Damn it! Sarah grabbed her arm. A small tear had opened near the shoulder joint. White vapor streamed out. Her oxygen leaking into space. Captain, your suit is damaged. I see it. Sarah fumbled with a repair patch from her belt. It's okay, I've got it. But Kriksthal could see she did not have it. Sarah's movements were getting slower. The oxygen leak was making her dizzy, and she was still holding the tether, still pulling the pod toward the ship. Let me go, Kriksthal shouted. Save yourself. No. Sarah's voice was weak but firm. We're both getting out of this. Both of us. I promised. She slapped the patch over the tear. The hissing stopped, but the damage was done. Sarah had lost too much air. She was running on fumes. But she kept pulling, hand over hand, dragging the pod toward the wandering star. The ship's cargo bay was open, waiting. Just another 30 meters, 20 meters. 10. Sarah's movements were barely coordinated now. She was operating on pure will, refusing to let go, refusing to fail. 5 meters. The pod crossed into the cargo bay. Magnetic clamps grabbed it automatically, locking it down. Sarah drifted in after it, barely conscious. Kriksthal heard shouting over the comm. Human voices. Panicked. The cargo bay door slammed shut. Air rushed in. Through the pod's window, Crixthal saw two humans in orange suits run to Sarah. They pulled her helmet off. Sarah was pale, gasping, but alive. She looked toward the pod. Even from here, even through the window, Crixthal could see her smile. "Told you," she whispered. "Both of us." Then her eyes closed and the humans carried her away. The pod door opened with a hiss. Warm air rushed in, the most beautiful feeling Crixthal had ever experienced. They were alive. Against all logic, against all odds, they were alive. And a human had made it happen. Crixthal woke up in a room that was too warm and too bright and absolutely wonderful. The medical bay was small and cluttered. Equipment covered every surface. Screens blinked with data. Nothing was organized the way Zentari medical facilities were organized. But the air was clean and warm, and Crixthal was breathing it. They sat up slowly. Their body ached, but they were alive. A human woman entered the room. She had dark hair pulled back and wore a white coat over blue clothing. She smiled when she saw Crixthal awake. "Good morning," she said in Zentari. Her accent was better than Sarah's. "I am Dr. Yuki Tanaka. How are you feeling?" "I am alive." Crixthal still could not quite believe it. "Captain Chen, is she all right?" Dr. Tanaka nodded. "Sarah is fine. Stubborn woman nearly gave herself hypoxia, but she is resting now. She will want to see you later." The doctor pulled out a scanner and waved it over Crixthal. "You are suffering from hypothermia and oxygen deprivation, but you are recovering well. Another few hours and you would not have made it." Crixthal's mandibles clicked nervously. "She almost died saving me." "Why would she do that?" Dr. Tanaka looked surprised by the question. "Because you needed help." "Why else?" "But I am not her species. Not her hive. Not her responsibility." The doctor sat down on a nearby chair. "Maybe not. But humans have this old saying, no one gets left behind. It means we do not abandon people, even strangers, especially strangers who need help. That is inefficient. Probably." Dr. Tanaka smiled. "But it is who we are." Over the next few days, Crixthal met the rest of the crew. There were only 5 humans on the Wandering Star. In Zentari terms, it was impossibly small. A crew this size could barely maintain a vessel this large. But they managed. Marcus was the chief engineer. He was a tall man with dark skin and hands that were always covered in grease. He showed Crixthal the engine room, which was a beautiful disaster of mixed parts and improvised solutions. "Nothing on this ship is standard," Marcus explained, patting a massive generator. "That's a Vrelian power core running on modified Zentari coolant systems, hooked up to human-built regulators. Should not work. But it does." Crixthal stared at the setup. By every engineering principle they knew, this should explode. "How?" Marcus grinned. "Because I asked nicely." He paused. "Also a lot of trial and error. Mostly error. The pilot was a young man named Jackson. He had red hair and seemed to be constantly drinking something brown from a cup. Coffee, he called it." He showed Crixthal the cockpit, which had controls from at least 4 different species. "We take what works," Jackson said. "The Wandering Star is not pretty, but she flies. That is what matters." What confused Crixthal most was how the humans interacted with each other. They argued constantly. About repairs, about courses, about what to eat for dinner. They disagreed on everything. In a Zentari crew, this would mean chaos. The hive mind prevented conflict. Everyone agreed because the council decided. It was efficient, but somehow the humans made it work. They argued, yes, but then they listened to each other. They changed their minds. They compromised. And in the end, they decided together. It was messy and loud and completely illogical, and it worked. One evening, Crixthal found Sarah on the observation deck. She was standing by the large window looking out at the stars. Her arm was bandaged from the suit tear. "Captain Chen," Crixthal said quietly. Sarah turned and smiled. "Just Sarah is fine." "How are you settling in?" "I am confused," Crixthal admitted. "Your crew, you argue all the time. You disagree. How do you function?" Sarah laughed. "Yeah, we are a loud bunch. But that is because we are all different. Marcus sees problems one way. Jackson sees them another way. When we talk about it, argue about it, we find better solutions than any one of us would alone. But the Zentari way is more efficient. One mind, one decision, no conflict. Maybe. Sarah looked back at the stars. But is it better? Your council decided you were expendable. One decision, no argument. Would you call that efficient? Krixthal had no answer to that. Sarah continued. Humans almost destroyed ourselves once. Long time ago. We had wars, terrible ones. We were divided into groups and each group thought they were right. Millions died. That sounds like the opposite of efficiency. It was. But we learned something from it. We learned that every person matters. Every voice deserves to be heard. Even when we disagree, especially when we disagree, we are stronger together. Because different ideas, different perspectives, they make us better. Krixthal thought about this, about the 43 Zentari left to die, about how none of them had been asked if they wanted to die. The council decided, and that was final. The Galactic Council says humans are too emotional, Krixthal said, that you make decisions with your hearts instead of your heads. Sarah nodded. They are probably right. We do feel things deeply. We get attached to people, even strangers. We cry at sad stories. We risk our lives for others. She looked at Krixthal. But you know what? I would rather be emotional and save lives than be logical and let people die. Even when it costs you? Even then, Krixthal was quiet for a long moment. Then they asked the question that had been bothering them since they woke up. Captain Sarah, how many beings have you rescued? This year, 47, counting you. And what do you gain from this? What profit? Sarah shrugged. Refuge Station pays a small bounty for successful rescues. Enough to keep the ship running, buy fuel and food. We are not getting rich. Then why do you do it? Sarah looked at them with those strange, forward-facing human eyes. Because it is the right thing to do. Because every life has value. Because somewhere out there someone needs help. And if we can provide that help, then we should. Not for profit. Not for glory. Just because it is right. Where I come from, right and wrong are determined by efficiency. And where I come from, efficiency is not the only thing that matters. Sarah put a hand on Krixthal's shoulder. The touch was gentle. You matter, Krixthal. Not because you are useful. Not because you serve a purpose. You matter because you exist. Because you are alive. And that is enough. Krixthal felt something break inside them. All their life. They had been taught they were just a part of the machine. Replaceable. Forgettable. And here was this human, this stranger, telling them they mattered. Just because they existed. Just because they were alive. For the first time in their life, Krixthal believed it. Later that night, Sarah shared more news. The Wandering Star had found 22 more pods. 22 more Zentari, all alive, all saved. They were all on the ship now, recovering. 23 lives saved. 23 beings that the Zentari Council had deemed expendable. All alive because humans refused to accept that math. Krixthal realized something then. The humans were not naive. They were not foolish. They were revolutionary. They looked at the cold, efficient galaxy and said no. They looked at the rules everyone else followed and refused to follow them. They chose compassion over efficiency. They chose individuals over the collective. They chose to care. And maybe, just maybe, that made them the sanest species in the galaxy. 3 weeks later, the Wandering Star docked at Refuge Station. Krixthal stood in the cargo bay with the other 22 rescued Zentari. They all looked healthier now, their shells shining, their movement steady. But they all had the same look in their eyes. The look of people who had been thrown away and then found again. Refuge Station was a massive structure, built from the combined efforts of a dozen species. It was neutral ground, a place where anyone could seek asylum. The Galactic Council had representatives there. Sarah stood with them, her crew behind her. This is where we part ways, she said in Zentari. The Council is investigating what happened. They are calling it an efficiency protocol violation. Fancy words for attempted murder. One of the other Zentari, a female named Silrith, clicked her mandibles angrily. The Hive Council will claim it was necessary. They will say they were protecting the collective, they always do. Maybe, Sarah said. But now everyone knows what they did. The other species are watching. The Zentari cannot just make this disappear. A council representative met them at the docking port. He was a Velthrine, a tall species with blue skin and too many fingers. He carried a data pad and spoke in the common galactic tongue. The 23 rescued Zentari are granted asylum. he announced. You may return to Zentari space if you wish, or you may remain at the station. The choice is yours. The choice is yours. Those words hung in the air. Zentari were never given choices. The Hive decided, the Council commanded, individuals obeyed. But here, in this neutral place, they could choose. Most of the rescued Zentari decided to stay at Refuge Station, at least for now. They needed time to process what had happened, to figure out who they were outside of the Hive. Crixthal stood alone, watching the others make their decisions. Their mind was spinning with thoughts. They could return to Zentari space, try to resume their old life, pretend nothing had happened. But how could they go back? The Council had left them to die. Their own people had deemed them worthless. Or they could stay here, safe but directionless, floating in place, not truly living. Sarah found them an hour later, sitting in the station's observation lounge. She sat down next to them without asking. Humans did that. They just joined you. It was strange and comforting at the same time. Big decision ahead, Sarah said. Yes. Have you thought about what you want to do? Crixthal clicked their mandibles. I do not know. All my life I have been told what to do, told what to think, told what my purpose was. Now I have no purpose, I am lost. Sarah nodded. That is a scary feeling. But you know what? It is also freedom. You get to decide who you want to be now. I do not know how to decide. Then let me help. Sarah turned to face them fully. The Wandering Star needs an engineer. Marcus is great, but he is just one person. We are constantly fixing things, and having someone who understands Zentari tech would be incredibly useful. Crixthal stared at her. You are offering me a job? I am offering you a place. If you want it, no pressure, but you would be welcome on my crew. I am not human. Neither is that Vrelian generator we are running on. Does not mean it is not part of the ship. Sarah smiled. The Wandering Star is not a human vessel. It is a vessel for anyone who wants to help people, anyone who believes no one should be left behind. I do not know if I believe that yet. That is okay. You can figure it out as you go. Crixthal thought about the cargo bay full of mismatched parts. The cockpit with controls from 4 species. Marcus's impossible engine setup. Jackson's navigation system that should not work but did. The Wandering Star was a ship built from different pieces that should not fit together. But they did. Because the crew made them fit. Marcus was a rescue? Crixthal asked. Sarah nodded. 5 years ago. His transport was taking him to a prison colony. He was convicted of hacking corporate systems, exposing corruption. We got his distress signal, saw what was happening. We decided the corporation was more criminal than Marcus was. So we freed him. And Dr. Tanaka? Yuki was on a medical ship when a plague broke out. The company that owned the ship decided the ship was a loss. They were going to destroy it, kill everyone on board to prevent the plague from spreading. We got there first, saved 300 people, including Yuki. Crixthal felt something shift in their chest. Your entire crew is made of rescued people? Most of us. Jackson joined because he wanted to help. But yeah, we are all people who got a second chance, and we want to give that chance to others. What about you, Captain? Who rescued you? Sarah was quiet for a moment. My dad. He was a rescue pilot during the Earth-Mars conflicts. He used to say that the measure of humanity is not how we treat the powerful, but how we treat the powerless. He died saving a colony ship from pirates. She looked at the stars. I became a rescue captain because of him, because he taught me that every life matters. Crixthal understood then. The Wandering Star was not just a ship, it was a promise. A promise that no one would be forgotten, that no one would die alone in the dark. I would like to join your crew, Crixthal said quietly. Sarah's smile was bright enough to rival the stars outside. Welcome aboard, engineer. 2 days later, Crixthal stood in the Wandering Star's engine room, working alongside Marcus to repair a coolant leak. They were happy. Actually happy. A feeling they had never expected to feel. The comm system crackled. Jackson's voice came through. Sarah, we have got a distress signal. Velkar vessel, stranded near a collapsing star. They are requesting immediate assistance. Krikstal's hands froze. The Velkar were slavers. They raided colonies and sold prisoners to the highest bidder. They were enemies of humanity. Most species hated them. Marcus looked at Krikstal. You okay? The Velkar are not good people. No, they are not. Sarah's voice came through the comm, addressing the whole crew. I know what everyone is thinking. The Velkar have done terrible things. But there are living beings on that ship. Maybe some are prisoners. Maybe some are just crew members who did not choose their captain. We do not get to decide who deserves rescue based on their species or their government. Every life matters, that is the rule. So, crew vote. Do we go? One by one, the crew responded. Yes. That was Yuki. I. Jackson. I am in. Marcus. Everyone was looking at Krikstal, the newest crew member. The rescued one. Krikstal thought about the pod. About the cold and the dark. About accepting death because the hive said they were expendable. Then they thought about Sarah, risking her life to save a stranger. About Marcus, and Yuki and Jackson, all choosing to help people even when it was hard. They thought about the message they had recorded, believing no one would ever hear it. But someone had heard. Someone had cared. Yes, Krikstal said firmly. We go. We save them. Sarah's voice was proud. Unanimous decision. Jackson, set course. Marcus, Krikstal, I need maximum power to the engines. We have got people to save. The Wandering Star's engines roared to life. The ship turned, heading toward the distress signal. Toward danger. Toward people who needed help. Krikstal worked the controls, their four hands moving with purpose. They were not expendable. They were not just a part of a machine. They were Krikstal, engineer of the Wandering Star. They mattered, and they were going to make sure everyone else knew they mattered too. The comm crackled one last time. Sarah's voice rang through the ship, strong and clear. This is the Wandering Star. We hear you. We are coming. Krikstal smiled. It was a human expression, but it felt right. No one would face the dark alone. Not while the Wandering Star was flying. Not while there were humans in the galaxy who refused to accept that some lives did not matter. The universe was vast and cold and often cruel, but it was also full of voices calling out, refusing to let anyone be forgotten. And Krikstal was one of those voices now. They were home.